With over 75 years as one of the most popular superheroes in the world, there have been Batman stories about virtually every situation you could imagine. We've seen comics where Batman is also Green Lantern, or where Batman fought crime as a toddler, or where he was sent to Earth from the planet Krypton. There's even one where Batman is actually Wolverine. But even with all the takes, there are still a few things people think they know about the Caped Crusader that just aren't accurate. Here are a few things you might be getting wrong about the Dark Knight. The ultimate loner. Batman is often depicted as a lone wolf who embraced darkness to fight a solitary war on crime, a model of determination and self-reliance, who can't afford things like friendships to distract him from his mission. Thinking of the Dark Knight as a loner, however, is contradicted by the fact that the Batman family boasts a truly massive roster of sidekicks and teammates. In addition to the 5 canonical Robins, don't forget Stephanie Brown, there's Batgirl, Batwoman, Batwing, Nightwing, Azrael, the Huntress, and even Ace the Bat-Hound. And that's before you get to teams like the Justice League, the Outsiders, and Batman Incorporated. Even when you strip Batman back to basics, he still has allies. Commissioner Gordon made his debut appearance in the very first Batman story, and Robin showed up less than a year later. Christopher Nolan's Dark Knight trilogy may have presented a more isolated Batman, but he still had Gordon, Lucius Fox, and Alfred, whose presence has been tied to Batman's origins since 1943. While Bruce Wayne might be the driving force, building a legend like the Batman could never be a one-man operation. Created by Bob Kane. Every time you've ever experienced a Batman story in any medium, you've seen the words, "Batman created by Bob Kane," a sentence that is one of the biggest lies in comics history. What actually happened in the late 1930s was that Bob Kane had an idea for a superhero named the Batman, and drew a sketch of a blonde dude in a red suit with giant bat wings and a little domino mask. Kane showed his drawing to fellow creator Bill Finger, who wrote the stories Kane drew. It was Finger who added almost everything we associate with Batman today, including the cool costume, the tragic origin, the Batmobile, Robin, the Joker, Catwoman, you get the idea. So while Kane certainly deserves credit for getting the ball rolling, it's a horrendous injustice that Bill Finger has been left out of the history books. Unfortunately for Finger, Kane managed to push the publisher into signing a contract which named him as the sole creator in perpetuity. In 2015, however, Warner Brothers finally added Bill Finger's name to the official credit with Batman vs. Superman: Dawn of Justice. Frank Miller made The Dark Knight dark. Frank Miller is easily one of the most important creators in Batman's history. Every modern Batman movie has been highly influenced by the moody aesthetic that Miller introduced in both The Dark Knight Returns and Batman Year One, and Miller is often credited with recreating Batman as a dark and gritty character who finally broke free of the campy image of the 60s. Really though, Miller wasn't the one who made Batman dark again. That credit goes to the one true dynamic duo, writer Denny O'Neil and artist Neil Adams, along with a handful of other creators in the 70s. As early as 1969, O'Neil and Adams made the conscious decision to bring Batman back to his pulpy gothic roots. The stories sharpened, the shadows darkened, and the scale became epic with the introduction of the mysterious global terrorist mastermind, Ra's al Ghul. The tortured, moody, but still heroic Bruce Wayne that we know today stems from O'Neil's portrayal, which laid the groundwork for what Miller would do in the 80s. The 1966 show ruined Batman. Holy puns, Batman! A cheesy theme song, ridiculous traps, full-screen bang and zap sound effects? Could anything have ruined The Dark Knight more than having such a brightly colored spectacle in his name?
Well, it was a good plot while it lasted, huh?
Yes, Catwoman, one of your very best.
For a long time, it was trendy to bash the 60s show for its silly camp, but in addition to being an accurate reflection of the comics in the 60s, it actually saved Batman from obscurity. Back when the TV series first came out, Batman's comic book sales were slipping. The show not only introduced a new generation of kids to Batman, it reminded adults of the characters they'd enjoyed when they were younger. The show also made a minor bad guy named the Riddler into a big-name villain thanks to actor Frank Gorshin, and its success brought superheroes into the mainstream in a big way. Batman's status as a pop culture hit paved the way for a wave of superhero films that started with Superman in 1978 and continues today. So basically, if you love the Dark Knight trilogy or the Marvel Cinematic Universe, you can thank Adam West for doing the Batusi. Batman doesn't kill. Batman's dedication to never taking a life and his hatred for guns have become a huge part of the character. In the early days, however, Batman was inspired by the murderous gun-toting pulp hero, The Shadow, and his first year of stories involved him punching an enemy into a vat of acid, snapping necks, and gunning down criminals with his own pistol. Even the modern version of Batman has gone through some bad days, though, and one of the most notable came in a story called 10 Nights of the Beast. Back in the late 1980s, Batman tried to stop a Soviet assassin named the KG Beast from assassinating President Reagan. At the climax of the story, knowing that the Beast will be let free if he's brought into authorities, Batman simply locks the bad guy up in the sewers, presumably to starve to death. Everything cool came from the comics. Every time a new Batman movie comes out, you'll always hear that one guy in the back row complaining that this isn't how it happened in the comics. The truth is, though, a good number of Batman's most iconic elements were created in film, TV, and radio before they ever appeared on the page. The famous Batcave, for example, actually debuted in the 1943 theatrical serial. Back then, it was just a creepy cave with a desk and a file cabinet, but it was cool enough to make it into the comics. Maybe the most successful element to make the leap from the screen was the wildly popular character of Harley Quinn. She was originally created for Batman the Animated Series, and thanks to stories like Mad Love, she proved to be so popular with fans that she was introduced into the comics universe in 1999. The cartoon is also credited with almost completely recreating Mr. Freeze, with an iconic costume design from Hellboy creator Mike Mignola, and so much pathos and depth that he's now one of Batman's most popular bad guys.